Welcome back. Trust the Buzz here if you're new to the channel. I make Charlotte Hornets content, so if that interests you, make sure you go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below. Beginning of a new season. Lots of good content coming your way. I'm super excited about the season. We can talk about whether I think we're going to make the playoffs or not in another video, but today we're talking about the first preseason game against the new look New York Knicks because they added Mikal Bridges and they've added Cat, of course. And really, those guys, they did what they did. Cat obviously didn't shoot that well from the field, but it's not like end of the world. Those guys have lots of other things to talk about, of course, because they're a team that's looking to, make the NBA Finals, while we're just looking to make the playoffs. And I must say, we looked really good. We're missing Grant Williams, we're missing Mark Williams, we're missing Cody Martin, and then we're missing Nick Smith Jr. as well. But those Grant, Mark, Cody are going to be guys who are in the rotation. And I must say the team still looked pretty good. Let me fix my camera a little bit. It's a little sideways. There we go. That's a little better. Even without those guys, Grant, is kind of like the vet of the locker room. He's the guy that's going to be really like leading the charge, even though that may be from the bench position. I know some people are still thinking he might start. He just was unavailable today. We'll see. I don't think he will, but we'll see. And then Mark, of course, being just the defensive anchor just by sheer size. And without those guys, I think we still look pretty good. Of course, first preseason game, I'm not sitting here saying we're going to make it, but I think I like what I saw. I've said all offseason, even towards the end of last season, I was worried about LaMelo Ball coming back from an injury because every time he's come back from an injury, he's looked better. He's looked strong. It didn't look like he was really losing confidence, and I was like, it would just be unfair to assume he's going to do that every time. And off one preseason game, it looks like he is doing it again because I don't remember what his stat line was exactly, but it was like 18, 7, and 3 or something like that in like 19 minutes. So he looked incredible. He looked healthy. I like the amount of threes that Brandon Miller was taking. I will say that he didn't really operate in the mid-range that much, which if you go back, he performed very, very well in the mid-range, like on dribble pull-ups last year. So I don't want that to completely go away from his game, especially when you got guys who can a little more consistent shooting. That mid-range is going to be there. So I don't want him to completely abandon it, but he took a lot of threes, and he looked good. He just looked smooth. He's a very, very smooth player. I like what he did, even though, the stat line may not be the prettiest stat line in the world. It's preseason, and like I said, it was all about feels. That's all I cared about going into this game was just how does the team feel? And I must say the team felt tremendous. Like, it felt like a brand-new team, felt like new energy. LaMelo Ball was just being really engaged in defense. I like what I saw from Miles Bridges. I was wondering, he said he was bought into being kind of the third guy on offense, but I wanted to know what that would look like, and I think he's going to flourish in his offense. I think he's still going to have those big 40-point games out of nowhere. But I think it's just going to come a little more natural. And in a lot of those games, especially last year, if you go back and look, they were forced. And forced by no one else was really doing anything outside of maybe Brandon Miller in those cases. And Miles Bridges kind of had to force like a lot of shots. This time, I think it's just going to be a little more rhythmic, as in the game's going to come naturally to him. And then you may look up as, oh, he's got 40, as opposed to it obviously looking like he's trying to go for 40. But I like what I saw from Josh Green. There was times he was picking up Jalen Brunson full court. I like the off-ball movement. I like getting LaMelo off-ball. I know a lot of people always say, you're trying to take the ball from LaMelo's hand. You're trying to take the ball from LaMelo's hands. We talk about this all the time on the channel. And me, nor Coach Lee, there's no one, I think, in their right mind will say, get LaMelo off ball because he's not good on ball. I don't think anybody in their right mind would be saying that. My whole point, and it looks like what Coach Lee's point and other people's point is that you allowing him to be off ball just allows the game to open up for him. He doesn't always have to create for himself. And luckily with guys like Meaches, Trey Mann, Brandon Miller, Miles Bridges, it allows LaMelo to try other things and score in other ways and not just solely be the main source of offense, because that can be taxing. That could be very, very taxing. We see how taxing it is on guys like Luka. We saw how taxing it was on guys like James Harden when he was doing it for the Rockets. And we see it time and time again, just how taxing that can be. Having someone come back from injury, having your team as a whole trying to be better overall as a team, you're going to need some other guys to step up. And I think that will force some of the, not some of the worst defenders on the opposing team, but some of the not so good. They're not going to have their key defensive guy on LaMelo all the time, especially if he's off ball. It just opens up the game for a lot of other people, and LaMelo himself, of course. And it's not like he can't just get the ball in mid-possession and kind of work. It's not like, I think he's a very efficient 3-point shooter when he's shooting off ball. It's just there's a lot of stuff that opens up for him and the others when he's off ball. So I think that having different guys to be able to control the ball and you feel comfortable with the ball in their hand and allow LaMelo to move off ball, and he it looks like he's been moving pretty well off ball, especially considering he is coming back from an injury. I think it's just going to be huge for our offense. I think we were scoring a lot of points. We did allow a lot of points, but it is what it is. I mean, it's still very, very early, but it wasn't. I don't think it was like necessarily bad defense. It was just maybe late rotations, but you knew the person knew to rotate. It was just a little late, a little hesitant. But overall, I really, really enjoyed what I saw. As far as negatives, I really don't want to go into any negatives just because it is the first preseason game, and probably all throughout the preseason, I'm not going to go. What's the point? I mean, it's preseason. I want them to do well. Of course, I'm going to point out negatives, but I just don't see the point in really like hashing on that, considering it is the first preseason game. Everything's changing around this franchise, but overall, like I said, really, really enjoyed what I saw. I like Tajon. He was going off before I start pressing record. I don't know. We were making a comeback, but I turned it off so I can go ahead and do this video. Tajon, I think he performed very well. I mean, he hit like a three, he didn't have like a floater or a hook rather, and then like I missed the threes, but I saw the stat sheet going on as I was preparing for the video. So it looks like he hit like 2 more threes. He looked confident on the floor. He looked a lot more confident. He was also someone that was a little late on rotations, but as far as like being there on ball defending, I think he did a really good job. I don't really think I have a bad thing to say about anybody. Except the guys who are like barely about to make the team. There's a reason they're barely about to make the team. Everybody else, though, I think our key rotation guys, Trey Mann. How can I forget about Trey Mann? Trey Mann looked great. He looked great defensively. He looked great offensively. Micic also looked great offensively. He opens up the game. There was a time where him and Melo kind of shared the floor and they opened up the game for each other. That was incredible to see. Just because someone that kind of has that same, I wouldn't say flair, but just kind of had that same style when it comes to playmaking and passing as LaMelo, just like a little like crafty. It was cool to have someone like that with LaMelo on the floor because they can kind of play off each other, and you really have to be in your defensive bag as the opposing team because you have 2 guys who can kind of absorb the defense and then kick it out to somebody with ease or make their crazy behind it. Like you just have guys that can pass it from any angle, and they do it in a little bit of different ways, but still they're both crafty in the same way, if that makes any sense. So it's cool to be able to have both of those guys on the same team now. I mean, on the floor at the same time. Is that a lineup I expect to see all the time? No, but it is a lineup to kind of keep the defense on their toes. And that's one of the coolest things I think I saw early on is that, yes, it's preseason, but Steve Clifford did not like playing with the lineup. I think Charles Lee did an exceptional job of just trying stuff. And if it didn't work, all right, we'll switch it. Like he would try stuff. And like, oh, this isn't good. I wonder what he's going to do. 3 seconds later, he's taking them out and switching it up again. So, I mean, I know some of that is to keep fresh legs. I get that, but it was cool to see. Let's try this. Didn't work. Okay, let's try this. Let's try it. Because that's what preseason is for. That's what this period of time is for. As a franchise in transition as a whole, I think the first 20 games is going to be like that. Not as egregious as it was today because it seemed like he was often changing lineups. He did want the starters going into the start at the second half. He did want the starters to kind of get more minutes, and I understand that because even though you've had a long offseason, this is like the first time you've really been able to run together in a game-like setting. So I can see why they got extended minutes, but he was definitely just switching up the lineups, and I thought that was really cool. So overall, like I said, I really enjoyed what I saw. I'm not expecting this to be a 45-win team, a 42-win team. We'll see. It's just so much in flux with the team. It's hard for young teams like that to stay focused and win at the same time as like kind of grow and develop as well because so much is changing. It's not to say that I don't think we have the talent. East is like all the circumstances point in the right direction. It's just hard. That's like the history of the NBA. You can look it up. It's just hard. But if they can play. If they can keep this up and then, of course, just get better as the season goes and kind of gel well with each other, and the East continues to be weak as we think it is, I really believe there's a chance this team can make the playoffs.